how job loss impacts a workaholic. What does a workaholic experience when they lose their job? How can they recover a sense of identity? And what are healthy and unhealthy reactions? What is the definition of a workaholic? This is someone who works to excess and they usually do not recognize it. They don't see it as a problem. What they see is that they must do this to get ahead. This is their mindset. The person who is a workaholic tends to prioritize work more than other things in life. They often make the mistake of what they do is who they are. They can be a perfectionist. Some are excessively competitive and do seek a sense of personal or professional control in all that they do. Often they feel guilty if they're not putting in excessive time at work. And their need to work excessively surfaces as a type of work-life balance problem and a lack of work-life balance. How does a workaholic react to losing a job? Reactions can be all over the board, but often hinge on circumstances of the exit. If the exit was toxic, meaning that it was unanticipated, it was under very negative circumstances, or was sudden, the impact can be profound on a workaholic. I'd like to share with you the story of Tom and share with you what he went through when he got a new boss who didn't like him and the experience he had going from working 80 hours a week to being unemployed. It's extremely powerful. Tom, thank you so much for being with me today. We're talking about the issue associated with being a workaholic and how unemployment hits people who fall into this category. Your story is so phenomenal. I was hoping that you would share with the audience just a few of the things that you went through. And I think our opening question is this. I mean, how did you come to recognize that maybe you were a workaholic? How did that do you?
23 years in the military. And in the military, and like some other, first responders, how you behave and what you do and how well you do your job has an impact on whether people live or die. And their focus was always the mission, the mission, the mission. And I seem to really revel in that type of environment because I've always wanted to make sure that my boss looked golden no matter what happened. Mm-hmm. And that requires an extra effort on your part. Whether it's appreciated or not is not the point. I felt good when I was able to make my boss look stellar. Those two things combined really turned me into a workaholic. At one point, I was working 40 hours on, 8 off, 40 on, 8 off for 6 months. Mm-hmm. When I got out of the military, it took me a while to find a job, but I ended up being a director of a department in the local government, worked maybe 90 hours a week. And it was salaried, so it didn't matter to me. I was just used to that pace of work.
Sure. So what happened to you emotionally when you lost your job?
Well, when I lost my job prior to that, I'm a problem fixer. Mm-hmm. I look at a situation, I look at a process, I look at an environment and find ways to improve it. And for a while, I was the blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy for the county because I turned that department around from the most hated department to one that people really appreciated. I was interviewed by the media, both print and news and TV. So I was pretty well appreciated for my work. I ended up working for a woman that felt threatened by me, and so she did all she could to undermine me.
Wow.
And being the type of person I am, I kept trying to make her look good and thinking, well, it'll turn around. And in the end, I couldn't put up with that environment anymore because it was toxic for me. I told you earlier that just before I resigned, I lost 22 pounds in 22 days. And of course, people said, oh, give me that diet. I said, you don't want it because it was so emotionally stressful. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just fretted and stewed and worried because I had invested so much of my time and energy and myself into the job, which a workaholic does, that I just kept giving it the old college try and continued to try to do that. And there was really no benefit for me. I'd just like to add that, I was with that organization for probably 15 years. Uh-huh. And because I resigned, I didn't get any kumbaya it's nice having you work with us. You've made tremendous changes. And that actually bothered Lorna more than it bothered me. It bothered my wife more than it bothered me because, it was terribly unfair.
So, what did recovery look like for you?
When I lost that job and I lost my identity, in actuality, I thought I was of use to no one, that I contemplated ending it.
Wow.
And I heard a voice that said, just end it. Your family will be better off without you.
You heard a voice that said, they'll be better off without you.
Yes.
Wow.
And I thought about it. I thought about it for about 30 seconds and I thought, no, that was the lowest point in my life. And I started climbing out of that. My wife convinced me to go do some mission work to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt good. And it took a lot for God to convince me that there was something better in life. Like there was 3 times that Jeremiah 29:11 at very different venues was displayed to me on the wall of a church. It was different places. And being as thick as I am, it took 3 times for God to convince me that there may be some truth in that.
And Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to provide you a future and a future filled with hope."
The first time I saw that, I just felt I need a job, I need a job, I need a job.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, my focus was I am defined by my work.
Right. And so many people put all of their effort into a job. Then when the job stops, they toxically go after the job search with the same intensity as the workaholic tendencies they had before
Mm-hmm.
the job stopped. And now they find themselves like in a toxic tailspin where nothing can move fast enough. And they feel they're completely irresponsible if they're not moving mountains daily.
As I said earlier, I thought, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. And I kept praying for that, but God knew that I needed something else, not just a job. I ended up just clinging to him like a survivor of a shipwreck on a raft. I had some very emotional times. I mean, I would cry and I'd feel sorry for myself. And I think the thing that opened my eyes is in your group. At that time, there were people that were living out of their cars. And to me, that was like, this can't be happening in America. But it was. There was 3 or 4 people in that group that were living out of their cars. They've been kicked out of their house. They were sleeping in their cars. And I thought, well, that's not going to happen to me. Why am I feeling so sorry for myself? Now, I don't know whether it was me or the Holy Ghost. But that was part of the progress of my recovery, was that realizing that there are a lot of people that are in far worse situations and straits than I ever was.
So it really goes to the question, Tom, what role did a confidential support group like ours play? It sounds like it helped you put in perspective your situation versus other people's situation. What else did it do for you?
It was a very safe place. If you remember, I used some rather strong words.
I do. They were colorful.
And there was no, oh, you can't say that here.
Right?
You were allowed to vent your emotions and your feelings and talk about the betrayals.
Mm-hmm.
And people honestly listened and they cared about you. And that was a salve in itself. That was a way to say, well, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for me to feel these feelings. It's okay for me to voice them. Now, obviously, if you really went out on a limb, I suppose afterwards you would have said, you're upsetting the others. But that never happened.
Mm-hmm. I have found that people just need a safe place to categorize what their experience has been. People just get exhausted and they get to a place where if I have to put on that interview face one more time, I'm just going to explode. I can't take it anymore. And I need a safe place to vent my emotions and connect with other people and receive support. But I can't do that in my friends and family because I'll be judged and it'll hurt my chances to get a job. So there's
Mhm.
this island people live on, and there's no bridge to that island. There's no support on that island. And that's where I see a huge opportunity in forming these support groups for people who, like you, have experienced tremendous loss, but then also tremendous recovery, because your ministry has really taken off. Your identity has really blossomed since I've known you and had the privilege of calling you friend, Tom. I've just seen this miraculous blossoming of you, this just beautiful second phase of growth and maturity that has just been extraordinary. And you have blessed so many people with your wisdom, your encouragement, and your support.
I am a living example of how God did bless me and how he has blessed my life. He has given me so much peace and joy,
Mhm.
and the ability to share that peace and joy with other people, and to minister to people that have dire situations and explain to them. And you know, I like to say I'm the poster child of the recovery. That may be pride, but we're just so blessed. That change in job helped me, and we are more than comfortable right now. We 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 enjoy life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jesus said, I came that you might have life and that it might overflow with abundance.
Mhm.
That's
Well,
beautiful.
I think that within that group, everyone was a stretcher bearer for everyone else, and that's a godsend.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, the people that prayed for me and that I prayed for, and it helps also when you pray for other people in situations and you pray specifically for blessings on them. I think that the Holy Spirit and God's peace does seem to descend on you because of that.
I believe these small groups are the answer to the isolation that people feel, and to the degree they can be grounded in prayer, it is such a powerful thing for recovery.
And then one last thing I would say, and it was probably pride, I couldn't totally open up to Lorna or my family
Mhm.
because I was always the breadwinner. I was always, dad, husband. And in hindsight, it made my recovery more difficult.
Mhm.
But for someone that didn't live with me, it was okay for me to open up
Yeah.
and voice those feelings. Some marriages are destroyed by that type of pressure.
Mhm.
Others grow stronger.
That's right. And I think recognizing the value of just objective people who listen and hear, who help validate, guide, and counsel, but offer that support, and not being the significant other. I think there's so much value in that. And people need a safe, confidential place to talk, they need a place to be real. And I just so appreciate you being here today and sharing your story, because men and women need to know they are not alone, and that this is something that's extremely common, but nobody talks about. Nobody talks about what happens when you're that driven person who encounters an unjust situation that results in a termination that then confronts you with a lack of identity and that profound loss. And so I know your story has touched so many people. Tom, thank you. Thank you for sharing this.
What are healthy steps you can take if this has happened to you? Know that what you're going through is grief at loss of a personal and a professional identity. You know how people go through grief when they lose a personal friend who has passed away? In this situation, you feel like you've passed away. This is hard for people to internalize. Instead of sending you cards and dropping off lasagna and everyone around you rallying for support, when you lose a job, too often the reaction is just the opposite. People tell you to put on your interview face, get out there and make something happen. And what you want is sympathy at the loss that you feel. People work hard. You feel like you've made a big contribution. When you lose your job, you might be feeling angry, unappreciated, and cheated. This sense of loss is amplified if you're a workaholic. If the loss is sudden, you might feel that your whole world is upside down. Is this you? One example of a man I knew had several transitions in his career prior to the final transition, but each each had warnings and choices associated with it. In his last situation, while he suspected he was going to be fired, the reality of the situation and the encounter with HR and his boss left him feeling embarrassed, shocked, and deeply saddened by the experience. You most likely will go through the stages of grief if you're a workaholic and you've been terminated. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is credited with the stages of grief in identifying those stages. These include shock, anger, sadness, denial, bargaining, and acceptance. If you're struggling, you need a safe place to be yourself and explore what you feel and where you're at in the process within a confidential setting. The tension you might feel is that you may feel an urgency to get right back out there, put on your interview face and make something happen. But what you need is time to heal, time to reflect, time to make decisions about what your definitions of success look like in the future. Because often the workaholic is shocked when the hamster wheel stops. When the merry-go-round of working excessively suddenly stops, you might find out that your wife has emotionally moved on, that the kids have grown up, and then you might actually apply your workaholic tendencies to your job search, and this becomes toxic too. One gentleman that I interviewed said, Elizabeth, I felt like when my job stopped that all of a sudden I was back into a PSTD mindset, a post-traumatic stress disorder type of mindset, where I had been working as a workaholic. Suddenly everything stopped and I found myself in a place I was wildly uncomfortable with. He said my sense of self-esteem, my sense of identity, my sense of contribution, all came to a sudden stop. And like a drug addict, I wanted to keep working. I didn't know what to do with the free time, and it was like I was crawling out of my skin. Do you feel this way? Where can you find support? You may want to turn to friends, but often workaholics do not have deep personal relationships because they've given all of their energy to work. If this is you, I want to tell you that's okay. Now that you have time, don't be afraid to ask for support because you need it. You can find support at your church, at your mosque, or at your synagogue. Another option might be the alumni network at your college, union, or trade school. A professional counselor, such as a sociologist, psychologist, or social worker, can also be very helpful to you. Physically, I encourage you to be aware of what is going on with you. Take a look in the mirror and take an inventory of what's happening. Are you excessively sleeping? Are you not having sleep? Are you drinking a lot? Are you binge eating? Are you not caring for your personal hygiene? Or are you experiencing weight loss? Are you not interested in things that you're normally interested in? These are all signs that you probably need to seek medical counsel. Here at Economy of One, where I work, we offer support. We have 3 different forms of support. Number 1, every Thursday we offer a safe place by Zoom for you to come in and join a community of people who want to hear how you feel. This isn't a place where you're going to practice interviewing. It's not a place where you've got to put on that interview face. This is a place where you can put on your spiritual sweatpants and rest. We are a community that prays for one another, genuinely connects with each other, and seeks to support one another in very proactive ways. Could you use some new friends and connections? Come and join us. You need to sign up for the economyofone.com newsletter. You just go to the bottom of our homepage, sign in, give us your best email address, and we will send you a newsletter that will provide resources, free resources and links. Finally, here on this YouTube channel, there is an entire collection of videos that constitute best practice, a class that's 5 hours for free. The worksheets, if you want to look at the content and review it before you commit to this, you can go to economyofone.com, the resources tab, look at our worksheets, and this is going to cover what is going on in this class. I encourage you to take an afternoon to invest in yourself. 5 hours is nothing to put toward measurably moving forward toward your future. Please subscribe to this channel. Our vision is to overcome the algorithms and get to as many people as we can help as possible, because people in America and throughout the world are hurting right now. Your vote of subscription makes a huge difference on our ability to reach them. So please subscribe to our vision to empower people to be an economy of one. I'm Elizabeth Allen for the Economy of One channel. Thank you so much.